We have very significant breaking news just in. We've just learned the Government Accountability Office says that the Trump administration broke the law by withholding that U.S. security aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, I want to read from this finding. Faithful execution of the law does not permit the president to substitute his own policy priorities for those that Congress has enacted into law. That's notable, of course, because Republicans, their defense has been this is just a policy disagreement, and that's in the president's purview. Let's go to Mano Raju back on the hill here. The GAO says explicitly this was illegal.
Yeah, and this is, of course, the nonpartisan arm of Congress, the investigative arm of Congress. Nonpartisan. Both parties rely on the Government Accountability Office to issue decisions like this, to rule on matters, to essentially review and study how things occur, sometimes the legality of matters, and here ruling, essentially making the decision that what the administration did was illegal and violating the Federal Impoundment Act of 1974 that actually requires the administration to spend money that has been appropriated by Congress. But here in this case, by withholding those funds that did not go to Ukraine initially, later they were released, but when they initially were withheld, that violated the federal impoundment law. This is according to the statement that was read from GAO as part of this 8-page decision that they've sent to Capitol Hill. It says GAO issued a legal decision concluding that the Office of Management and Budget, of course, is a budget arm of the White House, violated the law when it withheld approximately $214 million appropriated to the Defense Department for security assistance reasons, security assistance to Ukraine. It says the president has narrow, limited authority to withhold the appropriations under the law, but it said that it violated by withholding the matter. So $214 million is a chunk of that overall $391 million in funds that had been withheld from Ukraine. Of course, all of that coming at the same time as the president was pushing for those investigations, including into the Biden. So a significant decision here. We'll hear a lot more about this as we get into the Senate trial here in just a matter of days, guys.
Mano Raju, thanks very much. Gosh, the news is coming in, seems every minute. You got to listen. And it's one of these lessons here. If you think surprises are done,
they're not.
They're not.
They're not. And I'm glad he pointed out that this is nonpartisan. GAO is not political. With us, the experts, Philip Bobbitt, law professor and co-author of the book, Impeachment, a Handbook, and Gene Rossi, former federal prosecutor. Let me just begin with you, Philip. The question now becomes then what, right? What happens? Does I don't know this. Hopefully you do. Does the GAO have any teeth, any legal power here? Or can it just say this is illegal and then their job is done?
That's right. They can just say this is illegal and then their job is done. The Impoundment Act came in the wake of President Nixon's impoundments. And the idea is a very straightforward one. If the Congress appropriates money and the president disagrees with that appropriation, he can veto it. If it's then passed over his veto, he might then say, well, I'm just not going to execute the law. I'm just not going to spend the money. So to prevent that, the Impoundment Act was passed, and it does make it a violation of the law to do what's been done here, but it doesn't have any penalties that can be enforced by the Department of Justice.
Interesting. So this followed Nixon's impoundment. What specifically? Because that tie, of course, notable, because, of course, Nixon was, he resigned because he was going to be removed from office. What was it that Nixon had blocked funds for, and could that be relevant here?
I don't remember the exact appropriation, but there was a history of presidents deferring the expense of money, stopping the expenditure if the facts had changed. And what Nixon did was to take that history, say funds had been appropriated for a dam and it was no longer feasible or needed. He changed that history and tried to apply it to policy disagreements when he had just simply opposed the appropriation in the first place.
Okay, so let's look at this big picture, Gene, because you got this, right? And I guess this is like, all right, what does Congress or whatever, what does the Department of Justice do with this, right? And then you've got the Lev Parnas documents that you call devastating.
Well, here's the thing about Lev Parnas. He has some credibility issues. He's been indicted. But when I was a federal prosecutor and I had a witness like Lev Parnas, I had murderers, drug dealers, scam artists. You look at their statements and testimonies and you apply the rule of 3 C's. Can you corroborate what they say with documents? Is their statement or testimony consistent with other witnesses? And third, does their testimony make common sense? And for Lev Parnas, some of what he said last night and today checks each of those 3 boxes. And it comes to one conclusion. He was the pit bull for this arm for dirt alleged scheme that is textbook bribery, extortion, wire fraud, and possible honest services fraud, allegedly. And he is a fabulous witness, potentially, but he has to pass those 3 C's first.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it was the same attack we noted earlier that, on Michael Cohen. Of course, then we would remind folks, well, he worked for the president for more than 10 years. And we should note that Lev Parnas, actually Giuliani was working for Parnas based on their financial agreement because Parnas' company was paying him $500,000. I wonder, Philip, just particularly in light of your experience on impeachment, at a minimum, should the Senate consider calling Parnas as a witness or Giuliani as a witness now?
Oh, I think so. In the Clinton impeachment, in the Nixon impeachment, even in the Andrew Johnson impeachment, there was broad agreement on the facts. Here, the facts are disputed. And I think it would be irresponsible if you have an available witness, if it seems a relevant witness, if it's been established that the witness has information that would bear on these decisions, I think it would be irresponsible not to call them. It certainly is the Senate's job. I saw a statement by Senator Perdue saying this wasn't the Senate's job. I think what he means is it isn't the Senate's job to call the witnesses in the first place, but to have them present so they can be interrogated seems to me a crucial part of trying a case, which is what the Constitution demands of the Senate.
There's something that has not risen to the top in this discussion of Lev Parnas, Gene, but I do think it's important because Devin Nunes is still a sitting member of Congress involved in the impeachment process, or he certainly was on the House side earlier on. He is now admitting this morning that he did have that phone call with Lev Parnas months ago. A few months back, he said he didn't. And Parnas told MSNBC last night that Nunes was involved in trying to get what? Dirt on Joe Biden. Is that illegal for a sitting member of Congress to do? Is it just bad optically? What does it mean?
I think it's unethical. I don't know if it rises to illegal, but it is unethical for a member of a committee to take testimony on an impeachment issue when he could be a key player. If you take Lev Parnas' testimony at face value and it passes those 3 C's as I just talked about, he is an aider and abettor and a potential conspirator in this alleged arms for dirt scheme. And he is on the panel taking testimony about something that he is involved in. That at best for him, and the public should insist that this is unethical. Whether it's illegal is another matter. I don't think it is, but it's unethical.
Arms for dirt. Hadn't heard it described that way. Philip Bobbitt, Gene Rossi, thanks to both of you. And again, just repeating that headline, the GAO has concluded that the White House, the OMB, Office of Management Budget, violated the law in withholding that Ukraine aid.